Thank you all for joining. My name is Cassandra Burke. I am the Director of Marketing and Partnerships here at Visibility. And today we are going to be doing the CADLink webinar. Hasara Sandul is the engineer that's going to be giving the demo for today, or sorry, the webinar for today. And I know it's listed as Ray at the moment, but it is Hasara, so I'll let him take over.
Thanks, Cassandra. Welcome everyone, and thank you all for being here for today's webinar. Before I kick this off, I do want to mention a few things. So as Cassandra mentioned, it will be recorded. So if you do want to share with anyone else, you will have access to that recording afterwards. Today we're going to be discussing how you can level up your engineering game with CADLink. So quick introduction to myself. As Cassandra mentioned, my name is Hasara Sandul. I'm a sales engineer here at QBuild Software. I've been with the company for about 2 years now, and prior to this, I do have experience in the manufacturing industry, particularly automotive, and do come from a mechanical engineering background. So I'm pretty familiar with some of the processes and struggles or challenges that manufacturers do face. So let's talk a bit about what we're going to be discussing today. So first, I'm going to give a quick introduction into QBuild, who we are, what we do as a company, and then we'll talk about why CADLink. So what is CADLink? Why is it beneficial for your process and how you can make use of it? And towards the middle, we'll go through a live demonstration of CADLink as well. So this will be done through SolidWorks and Visibility. And after that, we'll talk about the benefits of CADLink, some of the impact on your business if you do use CADLink, and also some ROI topics as well. And towards the end, as I mentioned, we'll have a Q&A, but if you have any questions at any point, just enter it into the chat and I'll get to it as soon as I can. So let's talk a bit about QBuild here. So I know some of you see some familiar names here, and some of you may already be acquainted with QBuild, but for those that are not familiar with us, we are a software development company, and we specialize in the engineering to ERP integration space. So our whole purpose of QBuild and what we do is to help engineers and connect engineers to the rest of the ERP and the rest of the company. What I have on screen here is a simple map of some of our products. As you can see, CADLink there, some of our other products as well, such as ECX Manager, MBOMP, NestLink, etc. And all these products, again, focus on trying to integrate your engineering software into your ERP and streamline your engineering processes so you can be more efficient and save your engineers time as well. So today we'll be focusing on CADLink and discussing CADLink primarily, but if you do have any questions about any of the other solutions on screen here, please feel free to reach out to myself or Cassandra, and we can definitely provide more information. Just to go through a few of them as a brief introduction to some of these other products. On the top right-hand side, we have ECX Manager. So this is a engineering change management software that we provide. It provides a centralized web application where not only your engineers, but the rest of your company can log in, create engineering change requests, orders, and notifications, manage that all in the web application, set up workflows, attach documents, and really centralize that whole change process so you don't have to track people down using emails or that sort of thing. We also have MBOMP, who I think a couple of you on the webinar today are using. And this is a software that will allow you to compare and transform your engineering bill of material into manufacturing ready bill of material. So when you engineer something, it may not be actually ready to go to shop floor to instruct them on how to build the actual product. And that's where MBOMP can come in to help you manipulate that BOM to add in the operations, raw materials, routings, those sort of items to help you get it ready for production. And then the last one I want to talk about today is NestLink. So similar to CADLink, NestLink is also an integration software, however, for nesting side. So if you do any sheet metal fabrication or laser cutting, that sort of thing, NestLink will integrate with your nesting software. So synchronize your materials, inventory, job, and labor consumption back and forth between your visibility and your nesting software. So it's completely running in the background and you don't have to do anything. It's all running fully automated, so you don't have to spend any time on data entry or tracking down those accurate numbers. Again, if you want to learn a bit more about any of these other solutions, you can go to our website or reach out to myself or Cassandra. So let's talk about CADLink. And CADLink was actually the first product or solution that QBuild developed. It was developed by our founder and owner back in 2002 when he was working as an engineer at a manufacturing company. And at the manufacturing company, he was doing a lot of manual data entry and thought, why do I need to do this? I can simply automate this. So that's how CADLink was born, as a simple linking program between AutoCAD and his ERP at that time. And over the years, CADLink and QBuild have really matured, and we've developed a lot of partnerships and relationships with different engineering systems and nesting systems as well to cover the full range of our customer base. So you can see some of our partnerships here on screen. So some of the major ones: SolidWorks, Autodesk, PTC, and also on the nesting side, Sigma Nest, ProNest, Trumpf, all of those. So I'm going to launch a quick poll here, and I'm sure some of you recognize some of these logos or you use some of these logos. So I'm launching a quick poll here to see what systems everyone is using at the moment. So on your screen, you should see somewhere a poll where you can select one of the options, and let me know if you see your engineering software here. All right, looks like a majority of the user base or attendees are using SolidWorks or SolidWorks PDM, which is what we commonly run into and one of the major integrations that we do have. And it looks like a few of you are using Inventor and Volt and some other systems as well for the other half of the attendees. So that's great to hear. And if you don't see your logo or your engineering system here, this is not encompassing all of the integrations and partnerships we have. You can go to our website to see a full list of all of the engineering systems and softwares that we do integrate with. So let's start to talk a bit about why CADLink. So CADLink, again, is a tool or software to integrate or automatically synchronize your items and bill of material information into visibility directly from your engineering system or software. So without the use of CADLink, we often run into a lot of manufacturers and a lot of challenges that they mention to us without using a software like CADLink. And going through some of these challenges that we often come across, the first one is product development. We see this pretty often with a lot of manufacturers that don't use CADLink. Their product development suffers due to delayed change notifications and really struggles of getting their data into visibility quickly and accurately. And with these struggles of getting the data into visibility, that means it takes longer for them to go to market with their products and deliver to their customers, and less time spent on creating products to sell and more time spent on data entry. So depending on how well your data entry goes, your product development will suffer, as the design to manufacturing time also suffers as well. Another challenge that we often come across in manufacturers is product quality. So again, tying back into that data entry portion and inaccurate data entry, or a lot of time spent on data entry, we see a lot of manufacturers explain how they have production errors or wrong builds caused by inaccurate data entry. So by ensuring that we can get accurate data into visibility, we can eliminate things like wrong builds, which can result in spending wrong bill spending time on rebuilding manufacturing or scrapping parts entirely, which is not what we want. So if you can ensure that we have good product quality, that means there's less cost sunk into these products and into your company as well. That goes to waste. Another big challenge, and this is probably one of the bigger challenges we do hear from manufacturers, and especially from engineers, is engineering time being taken up. So oftentimes we come across manufacturers who have their engineers responsible for entering their BOM and part information into visibility because they designed it, so they feel that they have the best knowledge to put it into visibility, and they're ultimately tasked with that. But it's not what engineers want to be doing. They want to be spending their time on actual engineering work and not on menial data entry or tedious tasks such as entering BOM data, because they already entered it once and created the design in their engineering system. They don't want to do it again into another system, which is visibility. So by using up your engineer's time for BOM and part entry, you're inherently reducing their capacity for projects, new designs, and helping your customers and overall just general engineering work, which is not what we want at the end of the day to have an efficient company. And another very, very big challenge that often engineers and IT will complain about or we hear about is data management. So with manual data entry comes a lot of headache-inducing challenges, such as data misentries or double or triple data entries, which in turn can cause downstream confusion with the shop floor purchasing when they actually have to go and build a product or purchase or procure the materials for it. So for example, if someone were to input an extra zero for the quantity, for example, that can cause very, very detrimental effects into your downstream with production or purchasing. When they go to actually purchase the product or material, they might purchase 10 when you actually needed 1, which is not what we want, and we don't want to be sinking costs into these costly errors, which can be easily prevented. So by eliminating these double and triple data entry or inaccurate data, we can actually automate this process and minimize those effects. So you can start to see the overall picture here of a life without CADLink. There's a lot of areas for improvement and a lot of areas for errors and a lot of areas that we can increase our efficiency overall. So when it comes to alternate solutions, we often hear manufacturers using one of two solutions for their BOM entry and part entry processes, and those are brute force and blind push. Each of these have their own set of issues that we often hear manufacturers express. The first one is brute force. This is when manufacturers will have their engineers or another department or set of individuals manually entering the data into visibility to create these new parts, updating existing parts, creating new BOMs, or updating existing BOMs. So this method comes with a lot of challenges and issues that we come across. Number one, it's highly, highly error prone. People make mistakes, and when you're entering potentially hundreds or thousands of parts in a week into visibility, it's very, very easy to mistype something, or as I was mentioning earlier, enter in an X of 0, for example, when you don't mean to. Because of this, we often hear how manufacturers have inaccurate data, not only in visibility, but also sometimes in their engineering system as well, which, as we discussed earlier, it can lead to a multitude of issues like scrap parts or late shipments and so on, which is ultimately not what we want. Next, it's extremely time consuming. I'm sure those who have to enter data or have had to enter data manually into visibility or any other ERP for that matter can attest to this, especially when you have a large part database or have large bills of materials or even do a lot of custom manufacturing or one-off builds. It takes a lot of time to input this data. There's a lot of fields and a lot of data that an ERP requires to function efficiently and help your business. And data entry is simply not something you want your engineers to do, or really anyone for that matter, because it takes a lot of time and it could be used elsewhere more efficiently. Lastly, it's just plain boring, simple as that. End of the day, we are all human, and doing repetitive menial work is extremely boring times, and it's not satisfying. It's not satisfying work, and it doesn't give people that satisfaction that I'm contributing to something meaningful. We often, hear about people getting bored, and when people get bored, they tend to make more mistakes in their data entry, more of those double and triple data entries or miss entries, which is not what we want for the company and not what we want your employees or engineers to be doing at work. So you can see, with brute force, a lot of the issues that come about from it, and maybe some of the attendees are using brute force at this time. And I'm sure you can attest to some of these issues and challenges that come up with using such a method. Now, the other method that we come across is blind push. And this may be with an import-export method via an Excel file or CSV file or something similar. And this is slightly faster than brute force and just manually entering that data into visibility, but it comes with its own set of issues and challenges. Since it's a blind push, meaning that you don't have or get the chance to validate that data prior to inputting into visibility, you're relying on your data from the engineering system to be 100% accurate. In an ideal world, all our data would be 100% accurate, but in reality, and we come across this a lot with working with manufacturers and engineers, the data isn't always accurate as we like it to be. And we often hear manufacturers mentioning that they'll have to go back into visibility and locate the BOM and each of the affecting components and have to change, each of the fields and the data one by one to ensure that it is accurate for, shop floor production and the company overall. This costs time, it's costs a lot of effort, and in more so on the tail end of the process. So it's kind of a hidden cost to this method, which manufacturers don't often expect. Again, not what we want. Next, there's no bidirectional connection, meaning that you don't have the ability to update your engineering data if you need to. So if your data is not accurate, not only will you have to go back into visibility to update it there, but you likely have to go back into your engineering system and update the data there to prevent any future data inaccuracies. And more often than not, we hear that manufacturers, the engineers are not actually massaging the data in visibility. It may be, purchasing or shop floor that's doing that. And if they find an inaccuracy, they'll have to go back to engineering and tell them that, hey, this data is inaccurate, which again adds time to that process and a lot more hassle and headache than there needs to be. And lastly, it's often reliant on a single person. So this single person is more often than not just IT or another department. With this, sometimes we hear that IT has gone on vacation, and because of that, the manufacturer is now struggling to get their data into visibility because people aren't sure on how to actually do that process, or they're not aware of that process, which is downtime that we don't want to keep ourselves efficient and customers happy. This person also, or IT, whoever it may be, is also often tasked with the responsibility of upkeeping the software too. So ensuring that the blind push is functional with the latest versions, whether that's with visibility or your engineering systems, which is more time and effort spent, which can be easily eliminated by letting us take care of the software upkeep or any of other third-party solution provider. So you can start to see some of the issues with not only blind push, but with brute force and these alternate methods overall. Now I'm going to run another poll here to see what BOM entry process people currently use at your company. So you should see the poll right now, and I'll give it again another minute for these answers to come in. Okay, looks like brute force is taking the lead here. So looks like 60% of the attendees are using brute force, so manual data entry at the time, this point in time, which is a lot more than I expected, but 10% are using blind push, which is import-export method using a CSV, and 30% are using other, which oftentimes is a homebrew system or another method that we come across. So I'm sure those who are using these methods such as brute force and blind push can attest to some of these challenges that you come across. So with that being said, what's the solution to all of this? Solution is CADLink. So CADLink, and I did briefly give an introduction into CADLink, but CADLink will help you become more efficient and eliminate some of these challenges that we went through here. Let's talk a bit about what exactly is CADLink and how it works. So CADLink, again, is a software that will synchronize your item and bill of material information directly from your engineering software. So whether that's your CAD, PLM, or PDM system, CADLink will plug in directly into it. So it's an add-in typically to your engineering system, and it'll read the data directly from your model or your engineering data. Once it's read that data, it's going to check in visibility if those bills of materials and those items or parts already exist. If it already exists, CADLink is going to grab that data and do a live data comparison between the two systems, where you as the user will have an opportunity to verify that data in an interface and make any changes as you see fit, and sync the bill of material not only into visibility, but also back into your CAD system. So CADLink is bidirectional, which is one of the challenges that I was mentioning earlier, which can help you combat, not only making sure your visibility data is accurate, but also your engineering data is accurate as well. So instead of having to maintain two sets of data, CADLink can maintain both those sets of data for you with just a few clicks of a button. Now, I'm sure the moment a lot of you have been waiting for, a live demonstration of CADLink here. And let me switch my screen here into the demonstration. So give me a second. Now you should be seeing my SolidWorks screen here. So as I mentioned earlier, I will be doing this demonstration from SolidWorks to visibility, but again, CADLink is functional with all of those integration partners that I mentioned and many, many more. What I'll be showing here today with CADLink is identical in terms of process and interface and workflow across all of those engineering systems and softwares. So let's say, I'm a design engineer at X company and I've just finished making some design updates to this 4-digit printhead. So 4-digit printhead, it simply heats up a wire going into this, and then heats up these numbers here, which will imprint into the wire, giving it a serial number. And I've added in some additional cartridge heaters because my customers came back saying that, hey, the numbers are a bit blurry, so I've inputted more cartridge heaters into the model. Now that I've updated the model here to my customer's request, I'll now need to update the bill of material and these parts also in my visibility ERP to make sure that shop floor and production and purchasing is also aware of these updates and changes that are happening. So instead of doing a brute force of manually entering this data into visibility or exporting this to an Excel file and then importing it using the data migration method or blind push method, I'm going to be using CADLink to automate a large portion of this process for me. So as I mentioned, CADLink is an add-in to your engineering system. So here I'm going to simply go into my tools menu and launch CADLink right from my SolidWorks software, so I don't ever have to leave SolidWorks here. And now CADLink again is reading my SolidWorks data and checking if that data exists in visibility and doing a live data comparison. And what we're seeing here is the CADLink interface. So this is where you as the user have the opportunity to see the results of that live data comparison and verify the data, make any changes as you see fit before actually committing these changes into visibility and potentially back into SolidWorks. So at this point, I haven't pushed anything into visibility yet. Again, it's just the CADLink interface where I have that opportunity to look over data and review it before doing so. So there's kind of two main sections that you'll notice with the CADLink interface. The first being BOM grid here, which is where you'll be spending a majority of your time verifying the data, making any changes as you see fit, and manipulating the bill of material. We also have the side panel here, which provides some additional features and functionality such as change report or summary, and also a data validation message center. So let's talk about the BOM grid to start. And you'll firstly notice that CADLink is maintaining the parent-child relationship and my overall BOM structure based on what I had in SOLIDWORKS. And the next thing you'll notice are these colored highlights. And again, these colored highlights are the result of that live data comparison CADLink has made between my visibility ERP and my SOLIDWORKS system. So these colored highlights are there. So me as an engineer or user, I have the opportunity to look at this bill of material at a quick glance and understand what is actually happening. What's happening to these parts? What parts are new that's going to be created into visibility? What parts have any discrepancies in terms of data? What parts will be removed from my visibility bill of material? This is all presented to me through these colored highlights. So as soon as I launch the interface, I already know, have a general understanding of what is happening with this bill of material and what's going to happen in visibility, and also my SOLIDWORKS system when I hit save. So let's go through what each of these colored highlights mean. Starting from the top, we have the white colored highlighted parts or fields. And these are parts that CADLink is telling you, hey, I've looked for this part number in your visibility database or part master, and I found that this part already exists. So when you go to hit save, CADLink will make no changes to these white highlighted parts and fields because, again, the data is already in sync between the two systems, so no changes are needed to be made. The next colored highlight you notice are the green colored highlight parts here. And you can see we have quite a few of them on this bill of material. More than half, or probably half of this bill of material is all green highlighted parts. And these green highlighted parts are parts that are new to my visibility part master and ERP. So they were found in my SOLIDWORKS assembly or drawing, but they do not exist in visibility yet. And you can see that we have, again, quite a few of them. And when I go to hit save, CADLink will automatically create all of these green highlighted parts for me in visibility. Firstly, creating it in the part master, and then secondly, adding it to this bill of material in visibility, all with the click of a button just by hitting save. So what may have taken maybe, I don't know, 30 minutes or so to enter all of this part information and add it to the bill of material manually is now only taking me a matter of seconds or minutes to do all that for me. And I don't have to spend any time manually entering that data or reviewing it and making sure that the data is good. It's all done for me and it's automated by CADLink. So you can start to see how much time and effort you're saving by using a software like CADLink. The next colored highlight you notice are these yellow colored highlights, whether that's on my revision, my description, or my quantity. Yellow colored highlights is CADLink telling me there's a discrepancy between my SOLIDWORKS data and my visibility data. So let's take this description, for example, here. CADLink's telling me there's a discrepancy there. I can right click on it to see what the discrepancy actually is. And here I can see actually in SOLIDWORKS, I don't have a description actually inputted into SOLIDWORKS. But in ERP, since the item already exists in visibility, this description mechanical advanced assembly. And I can see which one I'm currently using here in CADLink. And as a user, I have the ability to pick and choose which option I'd like to use. So right now I'm using my visibility description, but let's say my CAD description is actually accurate and I maybe in this case I wanted it to be blank. I can simply select it here and CADLink will reflect that change in the interface here. So let's take this one, for example, where I actually have a discrepancy. And right now I'm using my CAD description, but let's say visibility was the accurate one. I can select it here. CADLink is reflecting that in my description. And when I go to hit save, CADLink will not only update that in visibility, but it'll also have the ability to write that back, this information back to SOLIDWORKS to ensure that my data is in sync between the two systems going forward. So, no more of that going into visibility, updating it there, and also having your engineers having to update the data there as well. You can simply use CADLink to do all of that for you and maintain those two databases with just one click. Now, with the description, I actually have the ability to further modify this data. So if this blank description, I can further modify this one here, or I can type in my own brand new description as well, directly through the CADLink interface, just like so. And again, when I hit save, CADLink will update that in visibility and also back into SOLIDWORKS if I'd like to. Now, with the quantity, revision functions identical to description, but with the quantity, it's slightly different, where I can still right-click to see the discrepancy, and here it's telling me that my SOLIDWORKS quantity is 4, but in visibility, I have a quantity of 0 for the specific bill of material, meaning that although the item or part exists in my visibility part master, it's not actually added to this bill of material yet. But if I go to click on the, visibility ERP or the quantity for visibility, you can see CADLink is not actually updating that information in the interface here. And that's because the quantity is always driven by the CAD documents, just to ensure that what we're pushing into visibility and what shop floor and production are using to build the bill of material or product is actually what the engineers intended as designed. So if I wanted to update this quantity, I'll have to go back into SOLIDWORKS, physically model the part that I want to add. So if I wanted to make this 5, I'll have to go in and add another latch product here into my model and then relaunch CADLink and update visibility that way. Now, further down, you'll notice some more colored highlights. The next one being gray here, and we have quite a few gray items. Gray items are parts that were not found in my SOLIDWORKS bill of material or model, but were found in my visibility bill of material. And you may come into gray highlighted parts or come across gray highlighted parts when you have, for example, a revision change or update. That's a common scenario where maybe in the new revision that I'm modeling in SOLIDWORKS, there's some parts that are obsoleted and no longer needed as per the new design or my customer's request. So when I go to hit save, CADLink will automatically update my visibility bill of material and remove these items or parts from my visibility bill of material to make sure that what I have there is, again, representative of what I have modeled in SOLIDWORKS. Now, quick note on that, CADLink will only remove these gray highlighted parts from my bill of material in visibility. It will never delete any parts or items from my part master or part database in visibility. But let's say I wanted to keep these parts. I didn't actually want to remove them from my visibility bill of material. I can convert them to what CADLink calls a manual part. And by converting it to a manual part, you'll see the colored highlight change from gray to blue, meaning it's now considered a manual part. And when I go to hit save, this part will no longer be removed from my visibility bill of material. Additionally, I can also use this manual part feature to add in parts to my visibility bill of material without having to actually model it in SOLIDWORKS. So this is a common use case for this feature is consumable items such as paint, glue, nuts, packaging, manuals, anything you wouldn't necessarily model in SOLIDWORKS or in your engineering system, but you do need invisibility for purchasing or manufacturing reasons. So let's say I needed an additional part here. I can simply add in a manual part, and from here I can search my entire visibility part master for the part I like to add, either by part number or description. So here, let's say I wanted to add this part here, 8937. It's a 6-inch diameter driven pull roll. So I can simply select it from this list here and hit accept. And CADLink is going to automatically load in all of the information that I have for this part in visibility automatically. And here I can just specify how many of this part I like. And let's say I need 2 of them for this build. And now just like that, I have some additional parts in my visibility bill of material without actually having to model it in SOLIDWORKS. Now, moving further to the right, we have these visibility specific fields or data. So visibility and ERPs typically require more data than you would typically include in an engineering model or drawing, such as part type, unit of measure, product group, those sort of fields that are required for ERP. And when you go to create a new part in visibility, it will require some of these fields in order to create that new part. So CADLink gives the user the ability to set up this information through the CADLink interface, either using a default or by simply going into the interface and selecting what I like, or through some other logic as well. So here I can see my part type, make or buy. If I want to modify it, I can select maybe this part is purchased, I can select that, and maybe the unit of measure is not actually each, it's feet, for example. So as I was mentioning, you can simply change these values directly through the CADLink interface, or we can also read it and map it from your engineering system if you already have that information available there. Now, these dropdowns that I'm showing here, these are coming directly from my visibility environment. So all these values is not something that I've set up external to visibility. If I add a new unit of measure or part type, for example, in visibility, CADLink will automatically pick up on that and it'll display it in the dropdown here. So I don't have to maintain these dropdowns at all. It's all automatically done by CADLink. Now, moving further to the right, CADLink also has the ability to handle raw materials. So raw materials is something that we can read from, again, from your engineering system if you already have that data there. But if you didn't have that data there, or raw materials is something that would be done later on in the visibility ERP, the CADLink user actually has the ability to add it in through CADLink here instead of going through visibility or the ERP. So let's say, this part here was actually something I manufactured in-house from raw material. I can, again, simply search my visibility part master for the part or material I'd like to add. And let's say I needed the stainless steel to actually manufacture or create this part. I can select it from the list here. And again, CADLink is going to automatically populate all of the information based on what I have in visibility. And I can specify how much I need. And let's say I need 12 inches of this steel. And now just like that, I have this raw material appended to this part and this bill of material in visibility as well. So that brings me to the end of the BOM grid here. Next, we have the side panel, which has some additional features and information, starting with the BOM changes tab. This is essentially a report or a summary of all the changes CADLink will be making when I go to hit this save button. So it's telling me all the changes that will happen in visibility through this notes section. Some of these, they're going to create the part first in the part master and insert it to the bill of materials after. Some of these parts are going to be removed, and maybe the quantity will be updated as well. And here I can actually double click on the part number to highlight it in the BOM grid. So if you have very large bills of materials with few parts changing, there's a very easy way to navigate through those larger bills of materials that you have going into visibility. And you can export this BOM changes tab to an Excel document or PDF along with the BOM grid. You can also export that to an Excel document. So a lot of our customers like to attach this summary BOM changes report to their ECN process to notify all the other departments of what changes are actually happening in visibility. Next is the CAD data tab, and this is a read-only tab where CADLink will display your engineering system's property information. So in my case, SOLIDWORKS, it's displaying my configuration and custom properties directly in the CADLink interface here. So I can, look at this data and cross-reference it easily without having to switch back and forth between the two applications. Again, just further streamlining that process a bit more. And lastly, we have this messages tab, which is arguably one of the most important tabs here. because CADLink will always validate your data against your rules and restrictions that you have in visibility. So my visibility environment requires a description, and CADLink is telling me that one of my parts description is empty, and that cannot be the case because visibility, if I try to save that part into visibility, visibility itself would not accept that data. So if I do have any messages in this messages tab, CADLink will actually disable and gray out the save button, preventing me from saving until I resolve or handle these messages. So I can double click on the message again to highlight the part in the bomb grid that's causing it. You can see my description is empty here, and I can type in my description and you can see the message is now resolved and my save button is re-enabled. But if, for example, I wasn't sure what the accurate description was to go into here, and maybe I need to talk to purchasing or procurement, but I still want to save the rest of this bill of material, I can use a save changes checkbox or save checkbox here column to pick and choose which parts I want to push into visibility at this point in time. So by skipping this part in the save, you can see the message is now being worked around or ignored, and my save button is re-enabled. So this is a temporary workaround to the messages, because when you reload that data, the description will still be empty, but it is there if you want to push partial bombs or longer lead time items, or just go by push subassembly by subassembly, for example, into visibility. So you also have that ability through CADLink. So that brings me to the end of the demonstration here. Hopefully this gave you some insight into how CADLink can, what the CADLink workflow looks like, how it functions, and how it can also help you streamline your engineering processes. So let's jump back into the PowerPoint here, and let's continue on and wrap up the rest of this presentation. As we went through the demonstration, there are a few features or main features that CADLink that were highlighted with CADLink. The first one being a direct link to visibility. So it is, again, directly hooked up into your visibility database, and when you hit save, it's going to automatically create those items and bills of materials in visibility. Next, it's also bidirectional, which I was mentioning. So not only can you push this information into visibility, but you can also push it back into your engineering software to make sure that both systems are up to date with the most accurate data. And lastly, you have the ability to update your items and bills of materials without ever having to leave your CAD system, which is something I'm sure all engineers will appreciate. So you don't have to go, back and forth between one, remote desktop, for example, or another software. You can just simply go directly through your engineering system or CAD system. So with all this being said, what are the benefits with CADLink? So the first main benefit that we see with our customers that use CADLink is the reduction of cost. This is by reducing the the amount of non-value added engineering activities, so giving back that time to your engineers and your employees to spend more time on new projects, new designs, and actually helping customers. It also reduces costs by eliminating those double and triple data entries, again, preventing inaccurate data in not only visibility, but your engineering system, and spending less time on that data entry or eliminating all that manual data entry. And lastly, it's, as I mentioned before, you're leaving the software upkeep to us, so you don't have to spend your IT resources or any of your other resources to make sure that your versions are up to date and your compatibility is up to date, which more often than not, we find that manufacturers will find out maybe later than they should. So we'll do all that for you and make sure that your software is up to date with the latest engineering software and also visibility versions as well. And CADLink is also compatible with Visibility Cloud, or if you want, if you are still on an older version of Visibility, we are still compatible with that as well. Next, the other benefit that we see is the accuracy of the data, that it is improved. So with this, since we're automating a large portion of this manual data entry process or BOM and part entry process, we're improving a lot of that accuracy of the data and visibility and the engineering system, which in effect leads to reduced scrap in our customers and improve purchasing accuracy, eliminating wrong build situations, and improving on-time shipments and overall company efficiency and more happy customers. So what do all of these benefits actually mean for your business? So let's talk a bit about the business impact here. With the use of CADLink, you're not only having cleaner data in both your engineering system and visibility, but you're also spending much less of your valuable time on menial data entry, so freeing up your engineering and production resources who can now focus on more projects, products, and your customers, overall leading to a better overhead ratio. But this is, nice to say in words, but practically, what does this mean? So let's talk a bit about the numbers and ROI here as well. So in terms of ROI, let's take an example in this case. Let's say you have, one engineer or production resource spending an hour a day on BOM entry and part creation and visibility. And with the use of CADLink, they can easily cut this time, this 1 hour down to 3 to 5 minutes by, again, just simply using CADLink. And if you have, a larger engineering team, maybe let's say 8 engineers, that's almost 8 hours per day that they're spending on BOM and part entry. And by using CADLink, you can cut that down to just 30 minutes a day on these tasks and giving them more time to focus on their engineering work. So in terms of numbers, so if we take those 8 engineers spending 8 hours a day, which amounts to about 2,000 hours per year on BOM and part entry, which is a lot of time when you think about it. And considering it is manual data entry, there's going to be, if you're using brute force or blind push, there's going to be some issues that we were talking about earlier that can lead to shop floor confusion, such as 1 scrap part per year in this case, let's take for example, or 6 late shipments and or 6 late shipments per year as well. And with the use of CADLink, we can easily eliminate this, cut down these 8 hours or 2,000 hours per year that you're spending on BOM and part entry, and you can minimize these scrap parts and late shipments to almost 0. So with that all being said, you're looking at about over $65,000 in savings annually. And this is just a rough number and oftentimes minimum number that we see. With a lot of our customers, we can see an ROI much greater than that and much quicker than that, depending on how what their previous process was as well. If you're looking for something a bit more specific to your company situation, I do have an ROI calculator that I can share with you, and you can use that to calculate what your estimated ROI and time on that ROI with CADLink would look like. So if you're interested in that ROI calculator, just please reach out to me or Cassandra. We'll be doing some follow-ups after this webinar. So you can just let us know that you're interested in that ROI calculator, and we can make sure to share that with you. So that brings me to the end of the webinar today. Thank you all for your time, and hopefully this provided more insight on how you can use CADLink to make your engineering processes more efficient overall. And if you want to learn more, again, feel free to reach out to myself. My contact information is on here on the screen, or you can reach out to Cassandra or your visibility rep, and they can definitely direct you in the correct direction.